Meredith, thanks very much. You've got a place to live. Now it's time to get a job. So who's hiring? Inc. magazine senior editor Rod Kurtz has some suggestions on where to look. Hey, Rod, good morning to you.
Good to see you.
You say go small. What do you mean?
Bigger is not always better when it comes to your career. Remember, Google started in someone's garage. There are millions, literally millions of smaller companies out there where you can get in on the ground floor and really advance your career. And they look at a recession as a time to hire when everyone else is firing.
You also like the healthcare industry. Which particular sector of it?
Well, you know, healthcare in general is booming. Baby boomers getting older, so we're seeing demand for nurses, physician assistants, even dental hygienists, medical secretaries. This industry over the next 10 or 20 years really growing.
I love your next idea. You say, hey, you loved your college years? Don't leave your college.
Yeah, just because you're getting the cap and gown doesn't mean you have to leave. I'm not saying become a permanent student, but colleges and universities are really big employers. They employ thousands of people. We're talking the admissions office. We're talking advisors and counselors. You don't have to be a professor to stick around.
Well, but speaking of professors, there is a need for educators at all levels.
Across the board, especially elementary school and middle school. Again, over the next 10 years, seeing a lot of demand. Very rewarding career. It can be tough, but at least you get your summers off.
The next one seems like an obvious one because how much are we talking these days about the environment and global climate change? So go green.
Of course. Go green in your lifestyle and perhaps your career. We're seeing cities and states and even the country giving tax credits to companies to do green stuff. They're hiring in droves.
Is there one industry you'd say stay away from?
You know, you see headline after headline, gloom and doom, the real estate market, manufacturing, construction. You know, any job is a good job, but these are industries you might not want to start with.
Rod Kurtz, always good information.
Good
Thanks,
to see
Rod.
you, Matt.
Back to Meredith.
You know, Jerry, there are places in the United States where the environment for doing business is good. And there are places in the United States where the environment for doing business is not so good. So how do you cater to people in different cities, and what are the best cities? Rod Kurtz joining us now. He's from Inc.com magazine. He's here with some of the answers. First of all, what was your methodology? How'd you separate one from another?
It's all about jobs. I mean, that's what people want to know, right? So what we do is we look at short-term and long-term job growth. These are the hot spots. I mean, when it comes down to it, if the companies in a city are adding jobs, chances are the economy's pretty good.
I'm surprised. The best city in the United States for business right now.
Drum roll, please.
Midland, Texas.
The hometown of both President Bush and First Lady Laura Bush. I think, you know, if you look at this year's list,
some people would look at that and go, what a coincidence.
Very suspicious. Yeah, no, I assure you it's nothing nefarious.
But it's oil. It's oil.
It's all about oil. And I think if you're looking at this year's list, one theme becomes extremely apparent. Don't mess with Texas. They have, of the large cities, 5 of the top 12 all in Texas, and of course, as you point out, Midland #1 overall of all the cities. So it's all about oil, it's all about gas. You know, there are people out there in this country, I hate to say it, that are happy about $4 a gallon,
you know,
they all live in Midland.
You know, I was just going to say that. The elephant in the room is most of the folks watching this show right now are thinking to themselves, so I'm paying more than I ever have just to get gas. Meanwhile, there are people in Texas who are making more than they ever have as a result of my paying more.
But the flip side of that is when gas prices were cheap and oil was, you know, $10 a barrel, it almost looks like a recession in places like Midland. So it does go up and down. It's just sort of counterintuitive to what you'd think. You'd think high gas prices, economy not doing so great, but
that's a fair point.
And other places,
that's a fair point, and I'm glad you made it. Let's talk about Raleigh, North Carolina. In fact, the whole North Carolina area.
The Carolinas are booming. Yeah.
Not hit with, you know, Jerry's always talking about problems in housing and real estate. That's an area that really hasn't been affected by this.
You know, it's interesting. You're seeing a lot of young families, people in their 20s and 30s going down there, and when you have a young and talented labor pool, the area does quite well. We're also seeing, you know, technology has always been a strong point for the Carolinas. They have that whole research triangle. But the interesting thing is it's become a financial hub, too, almost as an alternative to here in New York.
That's amazing, because so many other people are living in cities right now, and they wish that their economies were like the Carolina.
People are looking for quality of life, and that's why they go to places like Raleigh, and in the South, the weather is certainly nice. These New York winters, you know, it's much nicer to be down there.
What's the bad? What are the cities that are not doing so well?
Typically, the larger cities have a tough time, in part because of expensive housing and expensive commercial real estate. So New York, always a challenge. We're actually seeing some of the bigger cities mount a little bit of a comeback, and that's been the strength of the financial sector. The problem is now things are starting to take a tumble, and we could see these cities back down.
But Detroit, Cleveland,
Philadelphia, you see
Providence,
it there. Yeah.
Philadelphia.
Yeah, this hurts me. I went to college in Philadelphia, and I think that sort of underscores one of the problems with Philly is that they tend to lose a lot of college students, that they go there for 4 years, they have a great experience, and they don't stick around. So you're seeing cities like Philly try to retain them. Detroit, I think, speaks for itself. You know, if you're making cars and gas is $4 a gallon, your industry's not doing too well.
We can never get into all of this, so give us your website once again.
It's Inc.com, INC.com. We've got, I think it's something like 335 cities. So
we'll look for it there then.
Absolutely. Good
to
see you.
Good stuff. Appreciate it. That's really good information. Jerry, over to you.
North Carolina, always heading those lists. It's good to see.
And Rod Kurtz, that is what your magazine, Inc. is all about. It's a startup company magazine. Is this a perfect example of how somebody he's not exactly coming from nowhere, but with just a few years' experience in the Senate, can become the Democratic nominee?
I'm glad you're making this point. I mean, let's talk business here, because I really do think it is analogous. Yes, running a campaign is not like running the country, but it's a good indication. We look at someone like Mitt Romney, who we praise for his business experience, and how that could extend now as potentially vice president. So if you're talking about a fast-growing company, like the Obama campaign was a fast-growing campaign, you have a lot of commonalities. You look at raising capital or fundraising. They nailed that.
Oh, absolutely.
Field organization, managing a staff, and a young staff as well. You look at what they did with the internet. What startup out there now isn't managing the internet effectively? They stayed on budget. That's one thing the Clinton campaign couldn't do. Promotion and marketing. Look at those iconic signs they've come out with. When have you seen that in a political campaign? Finally, they stayed on message, and they built a brand. I mean, they built this guy out of nowhere. Let's not forget, 4 years ago, he was a nobody. I mean, they managed this very well. Regardless of where you stand politically, from a business standpoint, they did a lot of things right.
I think she was mayor of Wasilla for 4 years, and in that time period, this is a town of about 7,000 to 9,000 people. She got $28 million in earmark funds. Now, that's not someone who is trying to stop waste of government money, right?
Well, and according to at least some media reports, the McCain campaign dispatched a team to Alaska after the fact to sort of vet further this pick, because this flood, this avalanche, to use an Alaskan term, of information that was coming out.
What does that tell you?
I think according to the people that we talked about, it's cause for concern. The reason this is an important issue is because, yes, the President of the United States is commander-in-chief, but to a lot of people, he's also the chief executive. And again, looking at McCain as a CEO here, the CEOs we talked to said there's no way they would go about it in this manner. You know, even looking at our company, I'm actually interviewing intern candidates for the fall now, and we generally meet with them more than once. So a lot of companies out there are saying that, you know, this is not how we would approach it. Yeah, it gives them cause for concern.
But you, senior editor at Inc. magazine, the top expert on careers and small businesses. You know, Rod, listen, you're in a similar age group, and you see what's happening.
I still look young.
You know, and you see what's happening in the finance industry in the world. If all his friends are getting laid off, I mean, obviously he's going to be nervous and scared.
You start to worry. And look, I do have friends. I work a few blocks from Wall Street. It is a jungle out there. He is very smart to be worried. He shouldn't be too concerned, because I think he's taking the necessary steps now. He's thinking about it before doomsday strikes. A lot of people, you know, they wait till they get the pink slip and they say, oh, what am I supposed to do now? So, you know, in looking at some of his numbers, I think for anyone who lives in and around New York City, his rent is in the ballpark. He's not, you know, spending a huge amount. Some people, you know, spend $4,000 a month.
Safe, right? Yeah.
So, you know, his numbers are looking pretty good. I think I saw some of his credit card debt. You know, it's not huge, and I think now that he is employed and is in a position, maybe pay that off before the introductory rate goes away. As far as his career goes, I think you really have to recession-proof yourself. You hear a lot of people talking about this now. The key thing is to go the extra mile. It's a cliche, but it's true. You want to show your boss. You want to take on new responsibility. You want to make it so they can't live without you, and you are the last person they will think of firing. And I think that insulates you.
Rod Kurtz is a senior editor for Inc. magazine.
Rod Kurtz with us now. Rod Kurtz of Inc. magazine. If you don't have a subscription to Inc., if this isn't proof enough you need one, now is the time to...
Senior editor Rod Kurtz, one of our regular guests, got some reaction.
Rod Kurtz, thank you very much.
Good to see you, Liz.
Inc. magazine, he's the best.